Kyle Busch will likely return to Richard Childress Racing in 2026, and we could see Connor Zilisch full-time in the NASCAR Cup Series in 2026. What's going on, guys? This is Daniel, and welcome back to our video. We got some NASCAR and other motorsports stories discussed here today on the channel. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into those really quickly. We're first going to take a look at a ton of paint schemes that have been revealed over the course of the last couple days. Let's go ahead and just jump straight into them. The first paint scheme we're taking a look at is Carson Quaffel's 2025 Bachelor Shop Patriotic scheme that we'll see at Charlotte. I really like this scheme. It looks fantastic. The basketball look to it, the patriotic look. It looks really exciting, looks great. Looking forward to seeing on the racetrack at Charlotte. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Ryan Preece's 2025 Boston Common Golf scheme that we'll see this weekend at North Wilkesboro. I like this scheme quite a bit. One of the better ones I think we've seen from the RFK team so far. Do like the colors. Looking forward to seeing on the racetrack at North Wilkesboro. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Ryan Ellis's 2025 Tableau Rich Mark Flores scheme that we'll see at Nashville in a couple weeks from now. This scheme looks okay in my opinion. I do like they're combining two of the big iconic sponsors for Ryan Ellis this year, that being Tableau and Rich Mark Flores. I think it looks solid. I do like the combination as well. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Ross Chastain's 2025 Busch fan car that we'll see at the AllStar race. I've liked a lot of different looks of the Busch car. This one's no exception. I think Trackhouse has done a really good job with their paint schemes. Looking forward to seeing on the racetrack at the All-Star race. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Spencer Boyd's 2025 Right Mark roofing scheme that we'll see at North Wilkesboro. CM looks okay in my opinion, but it's pretty awesome to see that he's got a new sponsor. Spencer's been doing a really solid job picking up new sponsors for this year. This one does look all right. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Alex Bowman's 2025 Ally Patriotic scheme that we'll see during the Coca-Cola 600. Hendrick always does a fantastic job with their patriotic paint schemes. This one's no exception. I think it's one of the better ones we've had in recent years. It does look really good. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Josh Berry's 2025 Michael Waltrip throwback scheme that we'll see at the All-Star race. They're doing a throwback to Michael Waltrip's paint scheme from 1996 when he won the All-Star race. They absolutely nailed this. And I love that from time to time outside of the throwback weekend, we can get some of these really awesome looking throwbacks. This is one of the best throwbacks we have seen so far this year. And I think that the Wood Brothers did a fantastic job on the Sitco throwback for Michael Waltrip's car from 1996. It looks great and it looks amazing. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Ty Gibbs' 2025 SiriusXM scheme that we'll see this weekend at the All-Star race. Very similar to the one he had in 2024, not as good as the ones like Tyler Reddick's had or even Bubba Wallace's had for that matter, ones Mark Truex Jr. had a couple years ago, but I think it does look decent and it does get the job done. The next paint scheme we're taking a look at is Kyle Busch's 2025 Cenex scheme that we'll see at the All-Star race. This is going to be, I believe, the second time the Cenex has sponsored Kyle Busch. I gotta say, this one does look really solid. I kind of looked at it earlier this week. It does look pretty good, though. Glad to see Kyle Busch has a new sponsor. And the final paint scheme we're taking a look at is Todd Gilliland's 2025 Overplay scheme that we'll see at the All-Star race and All-Star Open. I think this one does look pretty good. We've already seen them sponsor, of course, Austin Green this year. The car does look solid. Definitely looking forward to seeing on the racetrack this weekend at North Wilkesboro. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about the North Wilkesboro tire. As it was reported by Bob Pockers earlier today, the NASCAR will be using a soft tire used at Bowman Gray at Martinsville for this weekend at North Wilkesboro. There was some clarification on this because originally we're going to be using the hard tire they've used all year, but NASCAR wanted to clear this up. Hearing this news about them using a soft tire from Bowman Gray and Martinsville actually gets me a little bit more excited about this race because I will say the race at Martinsville and Bowman Gray were honestly not terrible. I think Martinsville for Sanders in the next-gen car, I do think the softer tire will be better. But we got to remember this track is only in about year number 2 or 3 since they repaved the track. So we're probably not going to see a ton of fall-off, unfortunately. If we get a race like Bowman Gray, I will be very happy about that, though, because I think that definitely is a step in the right direction if that's the way we go. Do I think it's going to go in that direction? Honestly, I really hope it does, but I don't know if it's going to. We'll just have to kind of wait and see what happens, but I'm glad to see they've cleared up some stuff in regards to that. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Mike Skinner. As it was announced earlier today that Mike Skinner will be the Grand Marshal for the Craftsman Truck Series race at North Wilkesboro. Mike Skinner, the first champion in 1995, also won a lot of races in the Craftsman Truck Series for teams like Richard Childress Racing, also for Bill Davis Racing, many other teams in Craftsman Truck competition. I think this is a fantastic opportunity for him to give the command. I think Mike Skinner, who's been around the sport a little more in recent years, I think it's great to see that he is going to give the opportunity to give the command for the Craftsman Truck Series event. It makes sense considering how much success he had in this series. One of the best to ever do it. I think he won like 30 truck races, I'm pretty sure, in his career. So excited to see that he'll get the opportunity to call the Truck Series race at North Wilkesboro. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about the All-Star race, as the dignitaries have been officially confirmed for the All-Star event. So Len Wood is going to be the honorary starter. Eddie Wood is going to be the pace car driver, while John Wood and Michael Waltrip are going to be the Grand Marshals. This has major ties into that paint scheme that Josh Berry is going to be running because, of course, this is the 75th year for the Wood Brothers organization in the NASCAR Cup Series. So they've already been doing a lot of stuff with the Wood Brothers this year, and I think it's very important that you do tie into one of the most iconic teams in the sport. And it makes sense to do it during the time where they won the All-Star race basically almost 30 years ago at this point. So I think that's a really big deal. They're all getting the chance and opportunity to give the command to do what they need to do. I think John Wood and Michael Waltrip will honestly do a pretty solid job given the command, in my opinion. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about the All-Star caution for the Open. As was reported by Bob Pockers earlier today, there's been another change in when the All-Star competition caution is going to come out during the Open, as he reported that the competition caution during the All-Star Open will now be on lap 50 of the event and not around lap 40. Originally it was going to be on lap 40, around lap 40 of the event when they originally announced it, but now they're moving it to lap 50. I gotta say, can we please be a little more consistent on when exactly it's going to be? Can we decide if we're going to do like 40 laps originally and then not change it to 50? To me, this is what I think NASCAR is thinking. They're trying to create a way to try to spice up the product a little bit more, especially since the All-Star Open, I believe, is only like 75 laps. So they're trying to make it as close as they can to cause a chaotic finish because they want a lot of chaos in the sport. I think that's a big reason why they've moved the All-Star caution up to be a little bit later in the event. Do I agree with that decision? No, to be honest. I think that's not the best decision that NASCAR can make, but NASCAR has not always been making the best decisions overall. So something like this does not shock me or surprise me, and I'm not surprised to see that NASCAR is trying to create some chaos in the sport, in my opinion. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Tyler Tomasi. As it was announced earlier this evening that Tyler Tomasi will be driving a 22 truck for Ram Brothers Racing this weekend at North Wilkesboro. AJ Waller was originally supposed to be the driver, so Tyler is stepping in. Unfortunately, some tragedy struck the Waller family over the course of the last couple days. My thoughts and prayers do go out to the Waller family during this tragic time. But for Tyler, this is a solid opportunity. I think Tyler's made a couple starts. He actually ran the Truck Series race at Bristol not too long ago. LA Productions did have some association with that, and he tried to make his Xfinity Series debut with MBM Motorsports. They unfortunately failed to make that. But I think Tyler is a talented driver, and I think this is a really solid opportunity for him, and I hope he can do a really good job behind the wheel. So I want to see the Ram Brothers team show some success, especially with stuff that happened, unfortunately. I want to see this truck do really, really good. Unfortunately, I don't have the best confidence and faith in this truck, simply based on the fact that the Ram Brothers team has not been the fastest organization out there. So hopefully they can prove me wrong and run really, really good. But again, I don't have much expectations. I think it definitely will be a little bit of struggle for Tyler Tomasi for sure this weekend at North Wilkesboro. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Lionel. As it was reported by Adam Stern earlier this afternoon, that Lionel has authorized restarting shipments of its NASCAR diecast from China following their recent trade deal that was announced with the United States, and they are beginning effective immediately. I'm not really going to get into politics, but as you guys probably heard, it seems like Donald Trump and the premier of China basically have agreed to a new trade deal that's been going on for quite some time that have been affecting the products. And a lot of stuff from Lionel does come from China. Now, everyone's going to say you probably should make the stuff in America at this point. I'm not going to give my thoughts on that here. But obviously, there have been an increase of cost. We saw increase of cost, and they weren't doing a lot of production on those shipments that were going on. This is a major step in the right direction for Lionel. I really hope long-term down the road, though, that we can have some competition with different diecast companies. Because when you have one company that is controlling everything, that kind of isn't a monopoly in a sense. But also, if you have more companies that are going against each other and more diecast companies and not exclusivity and also drop the prices down quite a bit, I guarantee you that the product will be a lot better. But Lionel, of course, has made products for a very, very long time. But the problem is, from what a lot of people say in the diecast community, a lot of the quality of these products have generally suffered and they have not been very, very good. So the sooner we can get things to be better on that front, I think the better it is going to be for everybody. But this is a good start. Now, going forward, Lionel, I want to see them up their quality of their product. So I think the quality of the product is the most important thing. If you don't have a good quality product, people are not going to buy that said product. So I think they've got to do better on that front. Nonetheless, this is good news to hear that Lionel is restarting production. I know some of the diecast people in the industry are very happy about this news. I just hope going forward we can see a lot more better quality and see a lot more better of a product going forward into the not so distant future with Lionel. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Timmy Hill. As it was announced earlier today that Timmy Hill will drive the number 56 truck for Hill Motorsports next weekend at Charlotte Motor Speedway. This is going to be the third start that Timmy Hill and Hill Motorsports have attempted to run in the Craftsman Truck Series. They are currently not running full-time this year. The big reason is because Timmy Hill is competing full-time in the ARCA East Series in 2025, and they put a lot of resources into that. Now, this 56 truck does not have a lot of owners points going in the event. There are probably going to be a lot more trucks that are showing up. You're probably going to have a couple extra Spire trucks perhaps showing up and some other teams that might be entering the event that have not been announced at this time. But I think you're going to see a lot of trucks going out there. I believe Freedom Racing Enterprises, they're going to have a second truck for Ryan Roulette, I'm pretty sure. And you've got some other teams I know that are looking to maybe make some starts. But Timmy Hill, in my opinion, is one of the most underrated drivers in the industry. The guy puts a lot of effort and puts a lot of hard work to make this industry the best he can. And I really hope he can do a fantastic job at Charlotte. We've seen Timmy Hill from time to time in underfunded equipment, regardless of what team it is. We've seen Timmy Hill put up some really strong and solid numbers. So I'm hoping for Timmy, he can do a really strong job, show some really strong pace and really good speed with this team. I hope they can get a lot of support from Toyota going forward so they can have a solid chance and opportunity to be competitive. We'll see what Timmy Hill can do, but very happy nonetheless to see that he's getting the chance and opportunity to run the truck race at Charlotte. I also do expect more than likely that he is going to run the ARCA race, considering he does have some ties to the ARCA East program currently at the moment. I do expect that to probably be announced really soon as well. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about the Indy GP TV ratings. As was reported by Adam Stern earlier today, that Fox got 710,000 viewers for Saturday's race at Indianapolis Motor Speedway on the road course. That is down from 875,000 viewers last year on NBC. That is a 20 to 25% drop for basically like a 15 to 20% drop from 2024. Now, they are still up 15% from 2024, but that's because the first race at St. Pete had like 1.5 million viewers. We have lost almost 200,000 viewers across the board from the event at Barber, which was a week before, by the way, then of course moved there. Now, one of the big reasons is because Saturday races generally do not put in the numbers like Sunday races, but if I'm not mistaken, this race is also on Saturday too. So that's not the excuse. I think it'd be a reason why the number dropped is because of the dominance of Alex Palou. I'm not directly blaming Alex Palou. It's not Alex Palou's fault that the racing product hasn't been good. But there's a lot of people that have said the reason that they're not tuning in is because of Alex Palou being in the series. Now, also there, I believe, was some NASCAR stuff that was about to start. I think you had Cup qualifying that was going on during the race as well. And while Cup qualifying numbers generally aren't fantastic, a lot of people were watching that because I personally think that was more entertaining than the IndyCar race happened. Even though it was one of the more intriguing races we have seen so far this year for IndyCar, I think the Cup Series, despite the fact some of the races haven't been great recently, they probably had a more exciting product at Kansas than they had there. I do think the Indy 500 numbers are going to be good. They're doing a lot of promotion for that, so I'm looking forward to that. But at the same time, we've got to see some improvement, hopefully. And I think it's good to see, nonetheless, that it's not good to see numbers down. I hope the numbers can increase going forward, but I'm not super confident that is going to happen long term, in my honest opinion. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Connor Jones. As it was announced earlier today that Connor Jones will drive the number 44 truck for Nice Motorsports this weekend at North Wilkesboro. This is going to be the first time that Connor Jones has competed in the NASCAR Craftsman Truck Series since last year in 2024 when he drove for Thor Sport Racing. I gotta be honest, I am not very excited about this for a lot of reasons. Last year, Connor Jones was awful. He failed to score a single top 10 finish and ran worse than Hailie Deegan did in these trucks. Number two, he drove like an idiot on the racetrack and got in a lot of trouble. At North Wilkesboro last year, when he actually had a decent run going, he quit in the middle of the race because he was complaining that the cool suit on his truck was failing and he had no power steering in the truck as well. His crew chief told him to man it up, and he basically came in, if I'm not mistaken, and parked the truck. Then he go to the end of the year, and what happened at Homestead Miami Speedway? He flat out just right rear intentionally wrecked Matt Mills going into turn number 3 and hit the outside wall. Matt Mills was sent to the hospital for multiple days because he had smoke inhalation that came into his lungs. He went to the hospital because of Connor Jones. And then after getting suspended for a week at Martinsville, he came back to Phoenix and wrecked his teammate Jake Garcia after the race concluded. What really makes me more upset too about this is the fact that he's teammates with Matt Mills, you know, the guy that he could seriously injured. I don't understand what we're doing here. Why did we not put Bailey Curry behind the wheel? Why is this guy behind the wheel? I understand that money is very important in the sport, but this is someone who, in my opinion, does not deserve to be in the Craftsman Truck Series. And the fact that he's in with Nice Motorsports of all teams after what happened last year, I guess they have short-term memories over there, because honestly, it is ridiculous that they put him behind the wheel. Again, I understand why funding is very important for these teams and for these organizations. I get that, understand it, it's respectful. But in my opinion, it's really ridiculous that someone like Connor Jones, who shouldn't be behind the wheel of a stock car, shouldn't be racing, should have had his license revoked with the way he raced last year and the immaturity that he showed, I just think this is a terrible decision on their part, and I think it's not a good look for the sport, in my opinion, that he's back in it. I think he's not going to do very well. I think he's going to struggle immensely this weekend, and I think will probably cause some sort of incident in controversy, and it won't shock me or surprising. I won't have any sympathy for him if he gets involved in an incident, because personally, I'm not a fan of the guy. I don't think he's talented, and he should not be driving his truck. Where's Brett Moffitt? Where's Kyle Weatherman? Why are those guys not in this truck? Bad decision to put him behind the wheel. He should not be racing in NASCAR currently at this moment. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode, as we're talking about the Kansas Cup TV ratings from this past weekend. As it was reported by Adam Stern earlier today, that FS1 got 2.319 million viewers for the Avanhall 400 at Kansas Speedway. That is up slightly from 2.296 million in 2024, but it does need to be noted that last year the race was delayed due to rain, and a lot of people, of course, went over to watch the end of the Miami Grand Prix. That is still an increase from 2024, so that is slightly a win, but it's also a little bit down considering if they had ran the race straight up normal last year, the race probably would have gotten around 2.5 to 2.6 million viewers. Now, it was also reported, I believe, by Austin Karp today. They actually were flat in viewership from 2024, which considering you had a lot more race on cable this year compared to being on main Fox. I think that actually is a slight win for NASCAR that they didn't have major drops in ratings. We'll have to kind of wait and see what happens with the race on Amazon. But going back to the Kansas ratings, and I know a lot of people were not really happy, and I think some people have kind of stopped watching the sport because, one, they thought the racing wasn't great, which I do have to disagree about people saying the racing sucked. I know Kansas wasn't as good as it's been in recent years, but not every single race is going to be a barn burner. You're sometimes going to have races where guys are just going to flat out dominate like Kyle Larson did, and you're also going to have good races behind, and I think that there were a lot of fun and fantastic battles. But it's disappointing to see the numbers drop. You saw the Jeff Gluck numbers too. They weren't that good this weekend, unfortunately. I think people are just frustrated and they want change. And I don't know if NASCAR is going to make those necessary changes for the sport to truly get better. Nonetheless, I do wish the ratings were a little bit higher, and they are. It's disappointing that 2.5 million people didn't tune in because Kansas is a fantastic racetrack, but I think there's a lot of fatigue from people who watch the next-gen product, and I think there's some fans who want to see that product improve, but are not getting what they want, and they're not getting that product improvement that they're really, really looking for, which is definitely unfortunate, and I understand why fans are definitely upset about that, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, I'm not sure if things are going to improve and not going to get better going forward, in my opinion. But at least the ratings are up, but not as much as I think a lot of fans were looking at. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Kyle Larson. Now, earlier today, Kyle Larson put out a really awesome video that went up on his X page and his Instagram page as well. And he put out a post talking about his beginning of the month of May. Remember, Kyle Larson is going to be competing in the double. He is going to be attempting to qualify for the Indy 500 and win the Indy 500 this year. He is the first driver that has won the Brickyard 400 that is coming back the next year to race in the Indy 500. He is also looking to complete the double and try to win the Coca-Cola 600 as well. Kyle Larson, of course, attempted to complete the double in 2024, but unfortunately there was a massive rainstorm that affected a lot of parts of the country. It not only affected Indianapolis, but it also affected Charlotte as well for the Coca-Cola 600. Now, Kyle Larson has stated this publicly multiple times, and he continues to state that his main priority is going to be going to Charlotte and also going to North Wilkesboro for the AllStar race as well. So if he does qualify inside of the Fast 6 this weekend on Saturday and Sunday, he will then have to go ahead and prioritize that. Now, so far for Kyle Larson, he hasn't had the most fantastic speed out there, but what he said in a statement earlier today that Jeff Gluck posted, they're just easing him in currently at this moment, which is the most understandable thing you could do. You don't want to rush Kyle Larson in there and have the potential possibility of wrecking it. I don't want to see Larson end up wrecking his stuff because then he's going to be in panic mode. He's definitely got decent speed. His overall speed 24th, which isn't the highest up on the charts, but when you look at the no-toe speed, which is going to be super, super important for qualifying, he's in the middle of the pack around 13th. That's safe in my opinion compared to a team like Prema right now, where I think they're struggling, and I think more than likely at this moment right now that the team that's going to have a car going home from this year is going to be the new organization of Prema because they're not really ready currently at the moment, and they're behind the 8 ball. If you're Prema, you should be panicking at this moment. But for Kyle Larson, this is a great opportunity to work with Arrow. This could also be the final Indy 500 Kyle Larson runs for quite some time. He has stated that publicly. So if you are excited about Larson being in this event, you should be celebrating this, and you should definitely be watching a lot of this because this might be the only time, at least for the long-term and foreseeable future, that we're going to see Kyle Larson run the Indy 500. It's a shame that this might be the final year that we do see Kyle Larson running for a while. I want to see Larson running next year, honestly, and in 27 and 28. But at the same time, at some point, he's going to run out of those opportunities. But he's also still relatively young. He's only 32 years old. Will turn 33 at the end of July. But I want to see Larson do it. In fact, I want to see people like Shane Van Gisbergen down the road do it, like Ross Chastain down the road. A Chase Elliott, for example. If Max Verstappen ever want to do it, which doesn't sound like he wants to do it, I'd love to see him do it. What about Valentino Rossi? If he ever got interested, I'd love to see him do it. I want to see more of this NASCAR crossover like when Kurt Busch did it years ago. I want to see more drivers from that rank come in. So we'll see what happens down the road and if more drivers do attempt to run it. But I'm nonetheless very excited to see that Kyle Larson will get the chance and opportunity to run the Indy 500 in the beginning. It happens now. Larson, again, was decent in practice earlier today. We'll see if he can have the pace and speed to be a major factor in the Indy 500. If he makes it, I think he'll have a car capable enough to be an up front in this year's Indianapolis 500. And now we're going to head on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Brent Cruz. As it was confirmed earlier today that Brent Cruz will drive the #1 truck for Tricon Garage and make his Craftsman Truck Series debut this weekend at North Wilkesboro. This is going to be the first of around 7 or 8 starts that he has scheduled for the team this year. He is going to run Lime Rock, which will be one of the favorites to win that event. Now, if you don't know anything about Brent Cruz, you probably should be paying attention. This young man is one of the most talented young drivers that I think we have and one of the best prospects that is currently in NASCAR at this moment. He is the youngest driver to win the Trans Am Championship at 15 years old. He's the youngest driver to win a micro championship at the age of 13 in the sprint car scene. He almost won the Chili Bowl Nationals in 2025, finished inside the top 5 despite the fact that he started in the back of the field. He's won multiple races on dirt and ARCA. He's been very fast at road courses, and because of his Trans Am experience, I think that's going to play a major role. Now, the one truck for Tricon Garage, let's be real and honest this year, it has not been the fastest truck out there. Brandon Jones got one of the best finishes for that team this year, and he actually ran inside the top 10. But generally, that one truck has not been the fastest. Lost Allen struggled at Martinsville earlier in the year. Brandon Jones has not been quick in that truck so far this year, running outside the top 10, top 15 most weeks, despite the fact it did show some decent speed in the practice session. But for Brent, the goal is to get as much experience as possible because there is a chance and possibility that Brent Cruz could be replacing for Corey Heim if Corey Heim does move up to the Cup Series in 2026, which is a realistic possibility with the rumors about Legacy potentially trying to get a charter. If he goes out and wins North Wilkesboro, that is going to be impressive. And I think he definitely has a great chance to get a top 10. If he does anything better than a top 10, though, I'm going to be super, super impressed. And again, I think there's a good chance he might be not a Cup Series, because I do think down the road he will be a Cup Series driver. I think he's that good where I think he has all the potential and all the capabilities in the near future to be there. When I look at the top prospects, you got guys like Connor Zilisch, Corey Heim, Jesse Love, Sheldon Creed, I'd argue at this point. Sam Mayer, maybe. Carson Quaffle are on that list. Sammy Smith, maybe too. But I think Brent Cruz is potentially a top 10 prospect. Same with guys like Lane Riggs as well. I think he's super, super talented. I think he's very, very gifted. And I think he'll be very fast. And again, I think he's going to be super, super competitive in this event. He's got a lot of races coming up. I think he's also running Watkins Glen too, so he'll be one of the favorites in that Truck Series race. We don't know if Zilisch will be in there. I think those two racing against each other would honestly be really fun. And I think in the next couple of years, you're also going to see Brent Cruz make his Xfinity Series debut for Joe Gibbs Racing. I think he's part of that Joe Gibbs Racing pipeline long term. I don't think he has a development deal with the team, but I think he'll end up at JGR in the future. We'll see what happens, and we'll see if Brent Cruz gets a chance and opportunity to make some Xfinity starts down the road. He has to turn 18. He doesn't turn 18 until next year, but I'm excited to see if he'll be driving for Tricon Garage at North Wilkesboro later this week. I'm excited to see how he can do with that team this weekend. And now we're going ahead and jump on to the next story of today's episode as we're talking about Junior Motorsports. Now, we've talked a little bit about this on the channel in regards to an announcement that is going to be coming out on Fan Day. But earlier tonight, Junior Motorsports put out their bulletin once again. They have a car unveiling that is going to be happening later this month on May 22nd. It sounds like they are going to be announcing a car unveil on May 22nd. Now, we don't know exactly for sure what this car unveiling is going to be from Junior Motorsports, but from looking at what was posted last week, which we talked about on the channel earlier this week, you can actually kind of see it looks like a next-gen car. Now, it could be potentially an Xfinity Series car, perhaps, and that is certainly possible, but to me, it actually looks like a potential next-gen car. We do know that Travelers Whiskey is interested in doing more partnerships with Junior Motorsports in 2025. And I think this could be another partnership with that group for the 2025 year. Now, what race could they enter? It could be like Talladega, perhaps. It could maybe be the Summer Daytona race. Like, it's certainly possible, because we know that Dale Jr. in the past has stated publicly that he is certainly interested in bringing Junior Motorsports up to the NASCAR Cup Series. And at the beginning of the year, he said there was more interest than ever of getting that program up to the NASCAR Cup Series on a full-time basis. Now, I still think with the charters and uncertainty of the charters, there still could be a charter system around in 2026, but there might be a major difference in that charter system going into next year. But let's say if Junior does want to bring his Cup Series program up next year, will they do it? Honestly, I don't know. My theory has been is that there is a potential possibility we'll see Junior Motorsports in the Cup Series, at least on a part-time basis in 2025. But one of my theories has been is potentially going over and partnering up with Trackhouse Racing. We know that Junior Motorsports is to have a pretty close working relationship with that group over there currently at this moment. Connor Zilisch is driving full-time for Junior Motorsports in the NASCAR Xfinity Series right now. We are expecting he'll return at Charlotte Motor Speedway in about a week or so from now. But we know there's a lot of talk that Connor Zilisch might be moving up to the NASCAR Cup Series next year. And my theory is that if they are to have a potential possibility of joining Cup, I do think that this could be the likely potential way we see them get in the Cup Series where they invest. Because if the charters are still around, we don't know what's going to happen to those 2311 racing charters and the front row charters currently at the moment. So there's a chance that Dale Jr. could scoop up one of those charters if the charters do go away from that team or other teams down the road. But I want to see Junior Motorsports in the Cup Series, and I think a lot of fans do want to see them in Cup as well. And I think it'd be good for the sport if Junior's team could be up there. They were so popular, they brought a lot of eyes on the Daytona 500. We saw how big the numbers were for the Daytona duels, and I certainly do think that if they could find a way for this to happen, I think they'll try to make it happen here more than ever. But I think for Junior Motorsports, I still think again, there is a good chance and possibly this is just a sponsor announcement that is coming down the road, maybe for like Chicago or something like that. That is certainly possible. But I also think there is a great chance and possibility here that it could be something bigger than we're thinking about currently at the moment. If it is an announcement for a Cup program, I think that'd be really cool. But I also think it could just be maybe like a one-off Cup start perhaps for the program, which regardless, if they are bringing the Cup program back for any races this year, I think that would be a massive, massive win for the sport. So I think we're just going to have to wait and see what happens in regards to this and whether Junior Motorsports does have an opportunity to announce something for a Cup program. Because like I said, I think we all would love to see Junior Motorsports have that chance and opportunity to be in the NASCAR Cup Series. We'll see what happens, and we'll see if they actually do decide in one way, shape, or form to have a NASCAR Cup Series program in 2026, or at least try to maybe make some more Cup starts in the 2025 year. Maybe at a track like Talladega. We'll see what happens in regards to that in the not-so-distant future. And now we're going to go ahead and jump on to the final major story of today's episode, as we're doing a little bit of a silly season checkup. Now, earlier this week on the Door Bumper Clear podcast that Freddie Kraft, Tommy Baldwin, and Carson Elledge do, they were talking a little bit about some people that could be on the hot seat for the 2026 season. And they were talking a little bit about what silly season stuff could happen. Now, they did say that they do not expect, compared to prior years like 2025, in 2024, even 2023, they are not expecting any major moves happening. We all go back to a few years ago in 2022. We all know going from 21 to 22, Kurt Busch went over to 2311 Racing. Brad Keselowski went over to take an ownership role in RFK Racing that year. Then, of course, 2023, we saw the year where Kyle Busch left to go over to Richard Childress Racing after being with Joe Gibbs Racing for 15 years. You think about Tyler Reddick leaving to go to 2311, and you think about all the other crazy moves that happened throughout that time. And then last year, of course, we had the expansion of Trackhouse Racing, Shane Van Gisbergen being a full-time Cup Series driver, Stewart-Haas Racing shutting down their program, among other things. But they mentioned 4 or 5 big potential possibilities that could happen in the silly season department. The first one, main topic of this video, revolves around Kyle Busch. We all know currently at the moment that Kyle Busch is in a contract year with Richard Childress Racing for the 2025 year. And there are some people that are saying that Kyle Busch may leave Richard Childress Racing at the end of the 2025 year and go to another team. While others think, like myself, there's a very good chance and possibly that he's going to stick around with RCR in 2026. The Door Bumper Clear individuals do think that there's a very good chance and likely possibility that Kyle Busch is going to stick around with RCR for the 2026 year. And I actually kind of do lean and agree with them here. I think it's very likely that you're going to see Kyle Busch stick around with Richard Childress Racing in 2026. And here's why. One of the big reasons is there's not a lot of better options out there. I think one of the only options that Kyle Busch may have for 2026 is Spire Motorsports right now. Spire Motorsports, I do believe all 3 drivers are under contract for multi-years. Carson Osabar, Justin Haley, and of course Michael McDowell all have contracts through the 2026 season, in my understanding. So they're not going anywhere currently at the moment right now. And I don't think that you're going to have a team like Hendrick Motorsports available. Some are going to mention Trackhouse if they will talk about that in a minute here, and that could be a potential possibility. But right now, I think RCR is honestly a little bit better than Trackhouse at the moment. So I don't know if you want to go to Trackhouse, because I think that's more of a lateral move than anything else. And I'll say this about RCR too, like I mentioned multiple times. I do think Richard Childress Racing has shown improvement. Have they shown massive improvement? No, but the team has shown definitely some improvement in 2025. They brought Richard Boswell in. They brought Johnny Klausmeier into the program. I do think that they have shown some slight improvement this year, and they definitely have been doing a little bit of a better job. So I think more than likely Kyle Busch is going to stay with RCR in 2026. I think it's very likely he'll stay. Kyle Busch also has sponsors willing to work with him. I'm not sure if he goes to another team, if he's going to have those sponsors that are going to be willing to follow him to another program. So I think more than likely Kyle Busch is going to stay at RCR for at least 26. Now, 2027 is definitely possible he leaves after 26, because Kyle stated publicly he wants to be in the Cup Series for at least 5 more years. I think he at least stays for 26 with RCR, but he might become a free agent in 27. The other big one revolves around Trackhouse Racing. Trackhouse Racing currently has 4 drivers under contract and only 3 seats at this moment. You've got Ross Chastain in the 1, you've got Daniel Suarez in the 99, you got Shane Van Gisbergen in the 88, and of course you have Connor Zilisch, who is a development driver and has made select starts in the Cup Series and will run the Coca-Cola 600 next week. Now, there's a lot of speculation right now that Connor Zilisch could be in the NASCAR Cup Series on a full-time basis in 2026. Connor's been doing a really good job in the Xfinity Series this year. He's already picked up a win, and he's been getting better and better as the year has progressed and gone on. Now, the injury press could hurt his opportunity, a chance to maybe be a Cup Series driver next year, but we're not sure how long the recovery process is truly going to be, and I still think he is going to be very, very strong. So if Connor Zilisch is in the Cup Series on a full-time basis, who's going to take the seat? Well, I think it comes down between Daniel Suarez and Shane Van Gisbergen. Now, they suggested on Door Bumper Clear that maybe SVG would be the one to lose the seat. And to be honest, I look at Daniel Suarez and SVG, and I get why Daniel Suarez would be the one they choose to keep around. Daniel Suarez does have some funding with him, and he does bring some to the table. But Shane Van Gisbergen also has one of the biggest sponsors in the world, that of course being Red Bull. And another reason why I don't see Suarez sticking around with Trackhouse Racing after this year, at least at the moment right now, is because Ty Norris left the program to go over to College Racing, and Ty Norris is a pretty big reason why Daniel Suarez is over at Trackhouse in the first place. But the other big reason is Pitbull. Pitbull, right before the season began, I guess people forget this, but Pitbull left at the beginning of this year at the Daytona 500 week. I think the loss of Ty Norris and Pitbull has played a role in the program. Yes, I understand that Shane Van Gisbergen has not been good this year. He has had an abysmal season overall. But the last couple weeks, he's been showing improvement. He's had multiple top 20s in recent weeks. He got a top 20 at Darlington. He also got a top 20 at Kansas, top 25 at Texas earlier. And then, of course, I think he's had decent speed, and there's a lot of road courses coming up. I get that you're more than likely going to have a higher ceiling with Connor Zilisch than you are going to have with Shane Van Gisbergen. But personally, if Connor's in Cup, I think Suarez will go and probably go to College Racing, maybe replace Ty Dillon. That's my theory right now, and I think that's the most likely option. But I do think Zilisch will likely be in Cup next year. My prediction is Daniel Suarez loses his seat to Connor Zilisch, and he goes to another team. Or they could do the status quo and keep him around. That is certainly an option. Next, we're going to talk about some of the lawsuits. There's a lot of unknowns around the lawsuits between 2311 and Front Row. If 2311 and Front Row Motorsports do lose their preliminary injunction appeal that they are currently have with NASCAR right now, and the judge reverses that, they could lose their charters, and all the drivers could end up free agents. That being Bubba Wallace, Tyler Reddick, Riley Herbst, and of course Todd Gillen, Zane Smith, and Noah Gragson. Every single one of those individuals could end up being free agents at the end of this year, which would not be good for them, and it could cause a lot of silly season havoc down the road because all of them do have outs in their contracts if they don't have charters. So that's one to watch out for as well. And finally, the big one, Legacy Motor Club on the Cup side. Legacy is suing Ricker Racing. It's unknown what's going to happen with that charter. If the judge does go ahead and basically tells them you have to sell the charter on the year, because we know that Legacy is trying to become a 3-car team for next year. If Rick Ware does lose that case overall, they have been kind of winning the case early, but if they do lose the case, there is a very strong chance and possibility that you're going to see Rick Ware lose it and maybe see Corey Hahn go over to for 1 year Legacy if 2311 Racing, of course, keeps their charters for the next year. But finally, there's one other big one, and that is Dodge. I think we're also waiting on what's going to happen with Dodge, because we do know that Dodge and maybe Honda too are interested in coming into NASCAR. We know there's a lot of talk right now that Dodge is going to have a Craftsman Truck Series program in 2026, but it's unknown what teams are going to switch to Dodge. I have a theory that Trackhouse is the most likely one to switch. Trackhouse is not the top Chevy dog at the moment, so I think there's a very likely possibility that they are going to switch because of that going into next year. Overall, I am very interested to see what's going to happen with the rest of this silly season. I do think there is some big movement that is going to be truthfully coming very, very soon. I do think you're going to have some surprises that are going to happen. But right now, at this moment, I think a lot of the status quo is going to happen because a lot of drivers do have multi-year contracts. But I think there will be some certain changes that are going to happen, like maybe Junior Motorsports having a Cup program next year. We'll have to wait and see what happens, though, in regards to that. So, that is going to be today's long NASCAR news and motorsports news episode. I want to thank you guys for watching. Please subscribe to the channel, notifications on, so if I win a video does go live on my channel. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and support me on Patreon as well. Let's get some more of that and comment your thoughts below on today's episode. You think Kyle Busch is going to stay with RCR next year or not? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And what are your thoughts about Zilisch maybe being a Cup driver next year? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. We're going to have maybe the race picks for the Truck Series dropping tonight. If I don't drop them today, we'll do them tomorrow, along with the Cup picks for the AllStar race, and we also will maybe do the paint scheme video as well. Then on Friday, we are going to have a NASCAR news video, and we might do the paint scheme video also on Friday. We'll have to wait and see. And we've got some other content dropping. People like Haley Dean and Shane Van Gisbergen, Cards, Kurt Busch, Kyle Busch, Bubba Wallace, Ross Chastain, SVG, Junior Motorsports again down the road. We've got some other news might be coming later today. We'll have other content on people like Clay Zafar and all the good stuff very, very soon as well. So anyways, like I said, I want to thank you guys for watching today's episode, and I'll see you guys next time for more great, awesome NASCAR content and other motorsports content on the channel like this. Take care, everybody.